Today, we're going to unpack something pretty wild. It's a story that links the most cutting-edge AI on the planet with nuclear power. And trust me, while everyone's talking about computer chips, the real story, the one that really matters, is about what keeps the lights on for these things. So you gotta ask, right? Why on earth is Sam Altman, the face of OpenAI and the software revolution, suddenly so interested in building massive industrial-grade hardware? It feels like a total paradox. And that's exactly the mystery we're gonna solve today. All right, let's get into it. You see, this whole thing doesn't start with a clever line of code. It actually starts with a huge, fundamental flaw in the entire AI boom. And it's not a software problem. It's a physics problem. Yeah, you heard that right. While we're all obsessing over the latest and greatest chips from companies like NVIDIA, the real thing holding AI back isn't a lack of computing power. It's a lack of electrical power. These giant data centers are just unbelievably hungry for electricity. We're talking more than some entire countries. And here's the kicker. They need that power, all of it, all the time. So let's really dig into this hidden crisis. Because it's not just about AI needing a ton of energy, it's about the specific kind of energy it needs. And that detail? Well, that's what's causing a massive headache for big tech, and at the same time creating an absolutely incredible opportunity. And this slide right here shows you the core of the problem. Look, we all love solar and wind. They're amazing. But they have a catch, right? The sun sets and the wind doesn't always blow. Their power is intermittent. AI, on the other hand, it never, ever sleeps. Those data centers have to be running 24/7, 365, without a single millisecond of downtime. This creates what the source we're looking at calls the renewable trap. Which brings us to probably the single most important term in this whole story, base load power. You can think of this as the new gold rush for the tech industry. It's that perfectly steady, totally reliable, always-on energy that can keep an AI model running without ever flickering. And the big tech companies? They're finally realizing they just can't count on the public grid to give it to them anymore. So what's the solution? Well, to control their own destiny, they're starting to go off-grid. The plan is to build their own private, dedicated power plants right next to their data centers. And the technology they're turning to is a totally new kind of nuclear power, something called small modular reactors, or SMRs for short. So, how does this get us back to Sam Altman? Well, this whole strategy isn't just some PowerPoint fantasy. It is actively getting built out by a very real company, with a very familiar guy in charge. And here it is. The company is named Oklo. It's an SMR company, and its chairman, none other than Sam Altman himself. This is the direct connection. He's not just some passive investor here. He is actively leading the company that plans to solve AI's energy starvation with next-generation nuclear reactors. But here's where it gets really smart. Oklo isn't just building power plants. You have to look at their business model. They're not just selling kilowatt hours. What they're really selling is certainty. And they do this using something called a power purchase agreement, or a PPA. Basically, a company like Microsoft or Google signs a contract to buy literally all of the power from an Oklo reactor for, say, 20 years or more. This means Oklo has guaranteed, locked-in revenue for decades before they even flip the first switch. The best way to think about it is like Netflix, or any subscription you have. Oklo is providing a critical service, that uninterrupted baseload power. And its customers are going to pay a recurring fee year after year for decades. It turns the chaotic energy market into something incredibly predictable, just like software as a service revenue. Okay, so I know what you're probably thinking right now. You go look up their financials and you're going to see they're not profitable, they're losing money. And that's true because they're spending a fortune to build these things. So why would anyone invest? Well, this is where you have to look a little deeper than the headline numbers. The metric that really matters for a company like this is something called EBITDA. Now, I know it sounds super jargony, but all it is really is a way to see if the core business idea actually makes money before you factor in all the massive upfront construction costs and taxes and all that other accounting stuff. The source material we're looking at has a perfect analogy for this. Think about getting a car loan. Your salary, your total earning power, that's like your EBITDA. Your net income is what's left in your pocket after you pay your taxes and your monthly car payment. Now, the bank doesn't really care if you're broke at the end of the month. What they care about is your salary, your EBITDA, because that's what proves you can afford the loan in the first place. For Oklo, the moment their EBITDA turns positive, that's the signal.
It proves the core business works, even while they're still paying off the loan to build the reactors.
But, this whole thing is way bigger than just one company's balance sheet. This story is playing out on a global stage. It's a collision of technology, economics, and, you guessed it, geopolitics. In fact, the source material argues that this whole strategy is a slam dunk, and it's because of three huge forces that are all coming together at the same time. Let's call it the PPP framework: politics, performance, and protectionism. Let's break that down real quick. First, you've got politics. The US government wants to win the global AI race, so it's hitting the gas on approving American SMRs. Second, performance. The demand is already there. Tech giants are lining up, desperate for this exact kind of power. And third, protectionism. The West is actively banning nuclear technology from Russia and China, which basically creates a protected, walled-off market for American companies like Oklo to sell into. This quote from the source material just sums it all up perfectly. Everyone is watching the chef, the AI models creating these incredible images and texts. But the real, ultimate power? That belongs to the person who controls the energy. The person who owns the gas valve that lets the stove even turn on. And that really leaves us with one last big question to think about. As our technology gets more and more powerful and more hungry, maybe the key to the future isn't about writing the best code. Maybe it's about owning the power plant that lets that code run in the first place. A future where technological supremacy and energy independence are really just the same thing.